Hey everybody, this is Tom Salemi. Welcome back to the Device Talks Weekly podcast. We have another very special episode for you this week. This is the second time we've done this. We'll be hosting the final 10 finalists for the Medtech Color pitch competition, which is happening on March 3rd. So we'll hear from 10 of these startup companies. We gave them each about 3 to 4 minutes. And you'll get to hear their stories and their company's approaches. And I have to say, as I mentioned in the podcast, I really appreciate the different directions that these companies come at to solve some of healthcare's more vexing problems. So lots of insights, lots of creativity, and I know you'll enjoy hearing their stories. And they'll be, again, competing for the MedTech Color pitch competition, or competing at the competition on March 3rd. And to tell us more about MedTech Color and the competition, we'll have Executive Director Kwame Ulmer on the show. He'll walk through the Newmarkers Newsmakers with us, although no Chris Newmarker this week. You'll find out why. And he'll also tell us a bit about MedTech Color, its origins, what impact it's had over its 5 years. And I also ask him how he sees the industry at large sort of working toward increasing diversity, as it's something we all pledged to do a few years ago. So a bit of a report card on that. Before we begin this episode, though, I'd like to remind you that Device Talks Tuesday has resumed. We had we had episode 1 of season 4 last week, and we'll have episode 2 of season 4 on Tuesday at 4 p.m. It's brought to you by HP, and it's called How Effective Quality Management Systems Maximize Additive Manufacturing Medical Device Production. Once again, it's brought to you by Hewlett-Packard. So register now. Go to devicetalks.com. You can sign up. You can watch it live. You can watch it on demand. Either way, whatever suits you, it's a great way to keep your skill set sharp and to engage with some really, really high-quality companies out there. So go to devicetalks.com. While you're there, check out the agenda. I did add the agenda for Device Talks Boston. I'm still filling it out. I've got a few gaps that I need to fill, and we'll be doing that soon. But lots of great content up there. It's going to be a fantastic 2 days, May 10th and 11th, at the Boston Convention and Exhibition Center. Go to devicetalks.com for information about Device Talks Boston. And finally, of course, while you're on devicetalks.com, you can find our Device Talks podcast network, other episodes of the Device Talks Weekly, Stryker Talks, Intuitive Talks, Medtronic Talks. They're all there. And we are beginning to record episodes of our newest podcast series, which will be Boston Scientific Talk. So keep an eye out for that. We'll have that sent out through the Device Talks podcast network very soon, probably next month or so. All right, fantastic. Let us get this episode rolling. Thanks for listening to the Device Talks Weekly podcast. All right, you ready for this?
Ready.
Sean Whooley is filling in for Chris Newmarker. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm doing better than Chris, who's probably under a foot of snow by now. But
I did check in with him just before. I said, Chris, we're going to start recording the podcast intro soon. Any message for our listeners? Sent me a picture of his driveway, which doesn't look too bad. Said there's been a lull so far. Need to shovel soon. This sounds like a telegram. Stop. The second wave later is supposed to be a lot worse. Stop. We'll see. Snowman emoji. And then I said, gulp. And then he said, Kelly made some great no-knead bread in the oven this morning. So they're getting by. Although it's almost gone. He sent me a picture. It's almost gone. So, but we're fortunate to have you here filling in for Chris Newmarker, and exceedingly excited to have Kwame Ulmer, Executive Director of MedTech Color, in the booth. Kwame, welcome back.
Oh, it's great to be back, Tom. I've been looking forward to this.
I'm so excited to have the final 10 finalists from the MedTech Color pitch contest on. We recorded individual interviews with all of them, and we'll run them throughout the episode. But I'm equally excited to have you as part of the Newsmakers, because last time you were here, I don't know if you remember, you gave us some insights on Bayless when it was acquired by Boston Scientific, and you had clued us in on the fact that they hadn't raised any venture money, and it was a bit of a scoop. And actually, I got an email or a message on LinkedIn from one of the Bayless folks later on confirming the fact that yes, what was reported on Device Talks Weekly was correct. So that was kind of cool. So bring it. Keep bringing all the cool stuff, Kwame.
I have a future as an investigative journalist.
Fantastic. So let's just visit with you for a moment. Tell us about the Medtech Color. Well, let's zoom back and talk about Medtech Color a bit. I was looking at the website. I was trying to figure out when it was founded. The date 2017 is on there. Was it founded in 2017, or did it come together after that?
We started actually earlier in the infancy in 2016. We've been 5 years as a 501c3 formally.
Okay.
So I like to say we've had a 5-year journey, and It's been great.
And 5 years is I think a good length of time to sort of get a sense of things. Has it developed as you hoped it would, and has it achieved some of the things that you hoped it would accomplish?
It's exceeded my expectations. In the beginning, the idea was to try and build community. And we had a very simple notion of if we could just get together over an event, interesting conversations would take place, new conversations, nurturing of professional relationships. But we developed into a full-fledged nonprofit with 3 main programs: our pitch competition, which we're going to talk about. The networking breakfast remains a keystone event. And we're doing a lot of work in diversity of clinical trials. So it's been a wonderful thing to see grow. And you talked to Holly Scott not so long ago. Mm-hmm. We've been able to have these amazing partnerships with industry leaders. Holly Scott, Joe Mullins, the entire TMG group has really dove in, and they've been supporting our top 10 winners.
That's great. No, I mean, I'm grateful as someone who puts together events and puts out content to have organizations like yours and like MedTech Women really making it easier for me to ensure that we're talking to everyone we need to talk to and make sure that our content and our conferences are as well represented or represents the population at large as best that we can, because it's sometimes a challenge if you just rely upon going out through normal channels. So I'm grateful, and I'm glad we could work with you on the Medtech Color pitch competition. So let's talk about the competition. I mentioned we have 10 finalists. We'll hear from them today. What's the next step?
The next step is the competition, live and in person in Los Angeles, specifically in Culver City at Bioscience LA. We were joking earlier. We're going to have a couple cameras in true Hollywood fashion. It's going to be a production. We're going to live stream it. We'll have judges from the NIH, Johnson & Johnson, Olympus. So it's just going to be what I like to call a tier 1 event. And a lot of our partners from McDermott, Will & Emery, Wilson Sonsini, and others will be there live and in person as well.
And how will the companies that we're going to hear from today on the podcast and people will hear from on March 3rd, how will they be evaluated, and how will the winner be chosen? What qualities are you looking for?
So we've whittled it down to a few key categories that they will be judged on numerically. This will be an objective process where the person with the highest score wins, but they'll be on areas like team, technology, and ability to hit future milestones. And we'll have special prizes. ResMed is coming back for year 3, where they're going to hand select one of the companies to enter into their own corporate accelerator. They have a founder in residence program. Johnson & Johnson is going to select one of the winners to enter to get a JLabs membership. So all these other benefits will be there as well. And these corporate partners have their own criteria for selecting.
Final question before we kind of get into the Newsmakers. Are you seeing sort of a surge of interest from entrepreneurs of color in the life sciences and starting companies because you're giving attention to this? Are you do you feel like you're creating some frothiness that people are kind of being drawn to?
I'm so glad you mentioned that. We have commented on the quality of the companies increasing. And quite candidly, when we increase the prize money, we think that's a factor. And now we can say that we have 15 special prizes. So we can say, not only do you have this modest amount of non-dilutive capital, but you have access to strategics who have these special prizes that can help you along the way. So yes, we think we've been a bit of a magnet.
That's great. I'm always pleasantly surprised by the breadth of areas that your finalists cover, for everything from traditional medtech to something very, very niche and that doesn't get any attention at all and should. Support for children who need help with mental health. It's just an area that is essential. It's a part of our healthcare system that's in shambles, and it's great to see innovators paying attention to that and trying to find new ways to support these most vulnerable people in our population. So you've got some great companies here.
I think that's an excellent point. We have companies working on menopause. Yep. We have companies have hardware, software solutions for ophthalmic conditions. It's such a wide range of technologies, and that's a really exciting part. I didn't anticipate it, but I agree. It's a great part of the program.
Yep. No, I'm always I always enjoy these conversations. So, all right, now we'll begin running our interviews with Medtech Color's top 10 finalists for their pitch competition. I recorded these interviews separately. I gave each CEO roughly 3 to 4 minutes to tell their story. We did some minor editing to the interviews just to kind of smooth them out. But what you hear is pretty much what we got, and we're just going to run them alphabetically. I think that's the fairest way to go about it. So first up, I'd like to introduce BIOMED. And BIOMED is described as a next-generation subscription-based healthcare platform that uses 3D bioprinting, AI, machine learning, and big data, and a patient's DNA to deliver highly personalized and precision medicine to improve patient healthcare outcomes throughout their life. And I spoke with CEO and founder, Bobby Ntoya. Let's listen. Bobby, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, Tom. My name is Bobby Ntoya, CEO here at BIOMED. I'm a serial entrepreneur, been running businesses for several years. The last 20 years, I've had multiple different businesses. So I've been doing that for several years. One of the things, when I was undergrad, I played basketball, tried out undergrad at UIC.
Oh, wow.
Didn't work out the way I wanted it to. Decided to kind of go chase the dream a little bit, tried out for a couple of professional teams here in the US and abroad.
Wow.
That didn't work out. And I realized that basketball was not my calling, so to speak. But during that whole period, I was constantly looking and starting different companies at the time and realized that that was literally my calling. I never looked back. This is my 6th company, BIOMED, and been doing it ever since.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, tell us a little bit about BIOMED.
Okay, BIOMED is a healthcare platform that utilizes technology and science to deliver highly personalized and precision medicine to help patients have better outcomes through taking medications. And so one of the things we're really doing is really focusing on technology, AI, 3D bioprinting, DNA, and big data to basically get the information to personalize the actual dosing for individuals.
And so what are your product or technologies look like? Are you developing drugs or some other sort of technology?
Yeah, we're basically developing a 3D bioprinter. We've got an algorithm, AI, machine learning. We have a way to get the DNA sequencing and everything, utilizing everybody's information or a patient's information to give them precise dosing specifically for them. So it's basically the technology, not so much the drugs at the moment, even though that's a possibility in the future.
And what are you trying to treat?
Right now, we're focusing on hemp-derived CBD. So it's typically elements that has to do with either insomnia, any physical pain that they properly have, anything to do with mental health, and multiple things and different ailments of that sort.
Great. And finally, where are you in your development? What milestones are you hoping to reach over the next year or so?
Great question. So right now, we're filing a breakthrough device designation filing through the FDA for the 3D bioprinter. So we're looking to do that this year. We're raising seed round, about $2.5 million. We're also in the IllumifyDx program through the National Science Foundation. We're looking to raise about $2.2 million through the grants, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 with the SBIR. So we're looking to do that, finalize that this year, and then increase our ARR to about 500,000 to 600,000 on an MR, roughly about 40 plus thousand a month.
Fantastic. How can folks find more information about BIOMED?
So the company is BIOMED, BIOMED.bio. That's our parent company. But our product or the brand that we've launched is called Medibles, and that's MEDIBLES.ai. They can find us there, take an assessment, and then we can send them products, or they can look through the website.
Fantastic. Thanks for the time today, Bobby.
Thank you so much, Tom.
All right, next up, I'd like to bring Maria Navas-Moreno. She is the CEO of IllumifyDx, and IllumifyDx develops tests for the analysis of biofluids for early cancer detection. Company's technology is based on rapid, takes seconds, optical sensing of the overall chemical composition of the sample that is non-invasive and fully automated. The company is currently focused on cancers for which there are no biomarkers. So let's hear from Maria Navas-Moreno, again, CEO of IllumifyDx. Maria, tell us quickly a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I am a physicist by training and an entrepreneur by passion. This is my second company. And this company, our goal is to make cancer diagnostics available and accessible to everybody. We do it by analyzing what is called liquid biopsy. So taking blood samples, saliva, all the bodily fluids, looking for those traces of cancer, not genetics, but all the molecules that the cells use to communicate with each other. At the moment, we are focusing on the type of cancers that occur in head and neck. So think of the cancers that happen in the mouth and the throat mainly. We are very early stage, so we have proof of concept. And right now we are in the process of building our team, really pursuing the funds to go after clinical validation and really get the technology up to speed to give it to the patients.
That's great. What is the origin of the technology?
So the origin of the technology is the University of California, Davis. And it's basically, we collect the entire chemical composition of the sample that we are analyzing. We do so by shooting lasers at the sample. So this is called optical spectroscopy. Mm-hmm. And really our secret sauce is in how we analyze that data and how we collect the important information.
Great. And what are you hoping to accomplish over the next year? In addition to raising money, what are some milestones you're hoping to hit?
It's really about building the strong team. So we have the technical team. Both my co-founder and I are pretty strong on the technical side of things, but we also need people with experience in the regulatory side, of course. And the other big milestone is setting up the laboratory that will be outside of the university so we can start collecting the data and setting up the stage for what will be the submission for FDA certification and the next steps in our regulatory strategy.
Fantastic. And if someone listening to this wants to find out more information about IllumifyDx, do you have a website they can find?
Yeah, it's pretty basic right now. So it's IllumifyDx.com. They can also shoot me an email. It's Maria@IllumifyDx.com.
Fantastic. All right, Maria. Well, best of luck and thanks for sharing your story.
For sure. Thank you for having me, Tom.
All right, now it's time to bring in Samantha Scott. She is the CEO of JuneBrain, Inc. JuneBrain is developing a telehealth eye scanning system to remotely detect and monitor neurologists and eye diseases for the 1.3 billion individuals worldwide suffering from these types of conditions. So let's hear from Samantha Scott. Again, she is CEO of JuneBrain. Sam, tell us a little bit about yourself before we learn about your company.
A little bit about myself. So I'm a nerd. My background is biomedical engineering, and I focus primarily on the brain. So anything neuroscience, anything retinal disease related. So a lot of my career time has been spent with patients who are low vision or who have some type of vision loss and understanding what's going on in their brain, in their eye. The brain and eyes are my happy place. Yeah, I'm also a mom with a 3-year-old. So I'm a parentpreneur. entrepreneur.
That's a different kind of happy place. And because you admitted to being a nerd, I'll give you an extra 5 seconds for this. So tell me about JuneBrain.
Oh, JuneBrain, we're based in Baltimore, Maryland. I started the company a few years ago, and it was really based around, the starting of JuneBrain was based around my own experiences. So around 2017, I switched sides of the aisle and went from scientist researcher to neurology patient. So I was diagnosed with a chronic neuromuscular disease, and it was really the challenges that I faced with monitoring my disease is what inspired me to start JuneBrain. It turned out that many people share the challenges that I went through, which is essentially, our doctors heavily rely on us to self-report what's going on with our disease on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis between your annual clinical exams. So at JuneBrain, we're developing this telehealth network of devices and AI-driven software that expands the ophthalmology clinic into non-traditional settings. So that can be in the patient's home, in a pharmacy or a primary care clinic. And it provides a way to monitor objectively how patients are doing outside of their regular clinical exams.
That's great. And how are you able to do that? How is JuneBrain able to do that?
Yeah, so with more nerds, no, we have an awesome team, but really it's kind of approaching the problem from a few different ways. A lot of people on our team are personally impacted by the diseases that we're trying to help. We're really just focused on accessibility, taking very cool, intelligent technologies and making them accessible to people who traditionally have a hard time getting to these resources. So from a hardware point of view, we're building this pretty awesome device. It's a wearable retinal imaging system that can be used without the help of a trained person, so it can be used in any setting. Software automatically analyzes what's coming from the device. Our service is to provide regular reports about the patient to their provider. So kind of a three-front challenge.
What are you hoping to accomplish over the next year or so? What are some of your next milestones?
Oh, yeah, we have a lot. The biggest one, FDA approval is one of them for the software and the device over the next year, or at least submitting to the FDA. Generating first revenue, so actually getting our technology into providers' hands and having them say, this solves our problem well enough that we're going to pay you to use it. I think that will be the best validation we can receive. And fundraising, always fundraising.
Of course. How can folks find out more about JuneBrain?
Sure. So our website, we actually just redid it. So JuneBrain.com. We're also crowdfunding. That's a great source of information on Republic. But really our website. You can email us anytime. We actually answer.
Excellent, Sam. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you.
All right. So you've heard our first 3 finalists for the Medtech Color pitch competition. We'll bring you the remaining 7 a little later in the podcast. Well, we'll talk a little more about the program in a bit, but Sean, if you want to don your Minnesota accent and do your best Chris Newmarker, and let's roll through the Newmarkers Newsmakers. You don't have to do that, Sean.
I was going to say my grandmother's from St. Paul, so
there you go. All right,
there is some lineage there, but I would sound like a real jerk if I tried to do it.
What's number 5 on the Newmarkers Newsmakers list?
For number 5, we have the Supreme Court denies Johnson & Johnson's appeal of a $302 million vaginal mesh ruling. The highest court in the country denied an appeal attempt to allegations of false and deceptive marketing for the company's vaginal mesh implants. It goes back to a lawsuit against its Ethicon subsidiary in 2016 in the state of California. And it's a lot of money. It says that Jim Hammerand covered this late in the afternoon yesterday. The company last week said it spent $600 million in litigation expenses, primarily related to the pelvic mesh for its MedTech segment in 2022. So that's a lot of money, and the Supreme Court tossed it. Yeah, no, they've been having some difficulties on the legal front here with their effort to protect themselves against some of the alleged damage done by their talc franchise. Kwame, how closely are you following this? You're in California. This is in California. Is this resonating there?
Yeah, I would just say, yeah, the chilling effect meshes, I think, still persists. And it's just, it's unfortunate. But sometimes when major players exit, it just dries up solutions in a particular space. And sometimes for good reasons, for safety reasons, as we know.
Absolutely. All right. Well, it's we'll keep tracking. I'm sure Mass Device and MDO will keep an eye on that developing story. What's number 4, Sean Whooley?
Number 4 is Origami Surgical wins FDA clearance for its Stitch Kit device that helps with robotic surgery. So it's not the robotic surgery platform itself, but it's a extension or a expansion of the company's indication for the size of incision. And basically this device it enhances robot-assisted surgery, according to the company. It allows a surgeon to manage the aspects of suture use and needle disposal in clear view. The company describes it as providing safety, autonomy, and efficiency in robotic surgery. So I think just in general, surgical robots are of interest to our readers, and that's why this story seems to be popular. Obviously, like I said, it's not the same as a surgical robot itself, but it seems to play a pretty big role in the actual process. So it's an interesting story, and it seems like it's a pretty big deal to some.
Kwame, any thoughts on this?
I am meeting with the company in this space. I have to be very careful because I don't want to get in trouble.
Oh, come on! I'll push pause on record. We won't record this part. No.
But just to add to what Sean was saying, they want to actually create a solution for a condition that enables their robot to just really, as you might imagine, go to the next indication. And it's not an incremental, it'll be creating a new market. And I just feel like robots are here for sure. And I'm just having a conversation with another company that's just looking to expand.
And you're talking to them as
yeah, well, I'm actually talking to them in my role as an investor with Waymaker 360 Health.
Okay.
Because we're looking at a company that would enable this new market expansion in partnership with this robot, surgical robotics company.
Right, and just for just for some context, this isn't meant to reflect on any of the posts. We're recording this on Wednesday afternoon. We were off on Monday. We didn't record much news then, so this is really the best of Tuesday and Wednesday morning. Some more bigger news may come on Thursday and Friday. Very likely could, but just want to let folks know where the sample size that we're drawing from for this particular Newmarkers Newsmakers. All right, Sean, let us roll on to number 3, which is legitimately big news from Asensus Surgical.
Yeah, this is an actual surgical robot. So we're staying in the space, but it's interesting. They've obviously last week they rolled out 2 massive pieces of news with collaborations with Google Cloud and Karl Storz on the development of some of the sort of different features of their overall platform. But yesterday they unveiled their next generation platform that encompasses all of it, called Luna. They call it an integrated digital surgery solution. And basically, I think last year when Transenterix rebranded to Asensus, their mission, their goal was performance-guided surgery. So this is sort of a step in that direction. It's all in one surgical platform and instruments, intraoperative clinical intelligence, a secure cloud platform, a big station for if you read the story on our site, there's an image that kind of demonstrates exactly how it works or exactly what you're looking at, and it's quite something to be honest with you.
Kwame, do you have any insights on Asensus? This is a company, as Sean mentioned, we've been tracking for a while. Was Transenterix changed their name? They made some news last week, as Sean also referenced. It's one of the smaller companies, but they're continuing to push forward.
Yeah, I know the name Karl Storz, but not Asensus. And congratulations to them for getting into a really crowded space. And it sounds like they really did something innovative.
And I just was looking at their stock. It's had been trading for under $1, has remained under $1 even with this news. So I guess it just demonstrates that you really. It seems like a big pronouncement, but not big enough to move the stock price. So I think it's going to be a slow and steady progress for Asensus. So we'll keep following that story as well. All right, we'll take a break from the Newmarkers Newsmakers to bring back our Medtech Color finalists. Once again, we're working alphabetically, and our next company is Level 42 AI. It's a very cool company that uses audible and inaudible sounds and vibrations generated by the human body to detect disease. I had a great conversation with Dr. Shash Jumbe, and let's hear from Sasha Jumbe. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself? How'd you arrive to where you are today?
Sure. I'm originally from Zimbabwe. My undergraduate education was at Macalester College in Minnesota, where I majored in chemistry and engineering physics, and was a 3-time track and field All-American and 2-time national champion.
Wow.
My postgraduate education is in biomedical engineering, and I got that at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute and Albany Medical College in upstate New York. I've led data science teams at Amgen, Genentech, Roche, and the Gates Foundation over the last 20 years.
Very impressive. So tell us a bit about your company. You are CEO and president of Level 42 AI?
I'm the CEO, president, and also data scientist in the company. As you well know, with startups, you get to do everything. So Level 42 AI solutions collect and decipher subtle signals from our bodies that tell us that something is wrong or is going to go wrong early when we can still do something about it. And this ultimately helps to save lives and reduce healthcare costs. As you well know, Tom, most of us worry about how we look in fashion and in health.
Sure.
But from a health perspective, we should really be paying attention to how we sound, because the heart, the lungs, and the gut are key musical instruments in the band or the orchestra that is our body. So Level 42 AI is creating a whole science around these vibrations. And this is nothing new. This knowledge has been around with us for the last 4,000 years from traditional African and Eastern medicines. And we're just combining what has been known for a long time with algorithms in order to change Western medicine to be more responsive.
Interesting. So what is the microphone or whatever you want to call it that's picking up the sound, and how is it used? Is it something that's worn all the time, or is this something that's used in a clinical setting?
We're starting off with solutions that are used in the clinical setting. So we call these point of need solutions. And we've decided to go through the FDA first because most of what you see today, there's over 400,000 health apps that are out there. And most of them pander to what we call health theater. So by starting with a solution that is tailored for physicians and then can be translated over to the consumer, you're going to essentially fill up the white space between clinical visits and where we spend most of our time at work and at play.
And what is actually being heard? Physically, the sounds that my joints are making when I wake up in the morning, or?
Yeah, so interestingly, there is sounds you can hear, like the joints, the rumble in your stomach, your creaking knees and hips, etc. But actually, similar to light, right? There's light you can see, and then also light that you can't see. There are sounds that you can hear and sounds that you can't hear that are generated by your body. Imagine hearing every single heartbeat or every single breath. That'll drive you nuts. So we're actually focusing our effort on those sounds that you can't hear, where all the information around your health resides.
Fascinating. Tell us where you are in your development. What are you hoping to accomplish over the next year or so?
We are in the middle of an FDA submission right now, which we will complete in April. So we've been able to test our solution in over 6,000 patients over the last year. And we've been working very closely with the FDA and also with Health Canada. And we have 2 follow-on products that target heart disease and stroke that are currently in the clinic and being tested. And we look forward to bringing those to the market over the next 9 to 12 months as well.
Fascinating. Finally, how can folks find out more information about Level 42 AI?
Yeah, so first, the name Level 42 actually comes from a 2005 Mos Def movie that most of you might actually not know, called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where the number 42 is the answer given by the supercomputer to the question of life, the universe, and everything. So you can find us on LinkedIn as well as on Twitter and Facebook. Just look for Level 42 AI, and our white papers on our technology are being published in leading clinical and AI journals, and we'll also make those available online.
That's very interesting. Thanks so much for joining us on the podcast, Sasha.
Tom, thank you for having me.
Our next company is Movement Interactive. I spoke with CEO Eric Luster, And Movement Interactive is delivering or working to deliver a life-saving platform for athletes and senior citizens. The aim of the technology is to address undiagnosed concussions and unreported falls that its users face. It's offering a safety as a service solution that's being leveraged across multiple verticals, including sports and senior living. So let's hear from CEO Eric Lester. Eric, welcome to the podcast, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, Tom. I'm really excited to share this journey about Movement Interactive as I founded the company in 2016. It's been a long journey for me. I'm currently in Phoenix, Arizona, but I came to Arizona via the Army, where I enlisted as a nuclear biological chemical specialist.
Wow.
Yeah. But I was stationed in a tactical satellite battalion, and I got 2 for 1 out of the Army. I learned both jobs and deployed in my early 20s and led about 42 personnel and $20 million worth of equipment. And I learned a great deal transitioning out of the Army. I got really interested in person-centered design because I was recruited out of the Army by Northrop Grumman Mission Systems. And I found out that they were developing technologies that didn't include the full input from the users. Yes.
Wow. All right. Well, this has led to the founding of Movement Interactive. Tell us a bit about the company.
Yeah, so I set out to address one problem. And so we built our core technology, which is a wearable sensor for detecting and reporting concussions in real time. So we're really excited about this core technology, but our big IP in the company, again, is that person-centered design. And so we set out, we continue to talk with customers, and we continue to innovate. I'm a portfolio entrepreneur. So before we set out and set our goals and align them with, say, investors, we actually align those with our customers and our clients. And so that has led to several different innovations built around that core technology.
Can you tell us a bit about the product and how does it work with the user? Is this something they wear while they're playing?
Yes. So the user wears it. Again, we were person-centered. So originally, very eager and wanted to come in with the bias. We were going to put the sensor inside of a football helmet, but we actually listened to the customer. So we placed the sensor inside of a headband, which allows us to capture impact data across helmeted and non-helmeted sports.
Fascinating. And this is being used currently, or?
Yes, so we are the official provider for the Women's Premier Soccer League, which is the largest semi-pro women's soccer league. So we're currently conducting studies and slowly rolling out to that league to detect and report those concussions in real time.
Very cool. And what are your next milestones and accomplishments? What are you hoping to achieve in the next year?
Great question. So at the core of our technology, it works similar to the technology that deploys your airbag. So it uses a biomechanical approach. So over the next year here, we want to validate and further test. So we've actually partnered with a company to where we are validating our referee data against biomarkers. So this is a really exciting study for us, and this will help us go and take this into every sport.
That's great. And how can folks find out more about Movement Interactive?
Yes, so we can be found online at movement-interactive.com.
Thank you very much, Eric Lester, for joining us on the podcast.
Excellent. Thanks for having me, Tom. I appreciate it.
Our final finalist for this group is Navigate Maternity. I spoke with CEO Ariana McGee about the company, and Navigate Maternity has created a system that allows clinicians and care teams to remotely monitor prenatal and postpartum patients. Navigate Maternity's goal is to improve outcomes and avoid inequitable care through real-time data. Again, I spoke with Ariana McGee, the CEO, who has some very personal reasons to create this company. Let's listen. Well, Ariana McGee, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
I'm eager to learn about Navigate Maternity, but first, tell us just a little bit about yourself. I understand this is your first startup venture.
It is. So I have worked in corporate spaces for the last 11 years. I've worked in biotech, I've worked in pharma, I've worked in med device and market access, but now I am out on my own.
And you're a co-founder and CEO of Navigate. Tell us about Navigate and how you came to understand the opportunity.
Definitely. So I am a mother of 4 children. My husband and I have 4 babies under the age of 5.
Amazing.
And thank you. It has been a feat. And through my own experience of having my children very close and then also having them all via C-section, I started to uncover some of the major gaps. So for instance, when I was pregnant with my 3rd child during COVID, I wasn't being touched. Everything went virtual. And that was my first clue that there was a major gap here. Then fast forward, my husband and I relocated from Denver to our home state of Indiana. And I started to uncover that the rates in our home state were really, really bad. We were ranked number 3 in the nation for maternal death, and that our country was ranked 55th in the world. We actually have the worst prenatal postpartum death rate of any high resource nation in the world.
Wow.
Lastly, Black women like myself were dying 3 to 4 times that national average. So all of those stats started swirling in my mind, and that's how I founded Navigate. And lastly, when I had my daughter 9 months ago, I almost died. And that's when it became crystal clear that there is a major problem here. I had a very tired on-call doctor who tried to send me home. Despite me being high risk, despite me coming in for now my 4th C-section, she wouldn't listen to me. And I had to plead, my mother had to plead. We had to really, advocate for her to finally call my doctor. My doctor absolutely was like, no, you can't leave. She rushed in. She takes me back to the operating room. They open me up and I have a huge uterine window. My uterus was so thin, it looked like a water balloon. It almost burst. And so had I gone home, had I not had Navigate, had I not known, like most patients don't know, I would have died and my daughter would have died. And that is what Navigate is trying to solve for.
That's an outstanding, horrible story. And I'm glad everyone is well. What is Navigate's solution?
So we have a remote patient monitoring system for prenatal and postpartum mothers. Our system has a suite of sensors, which include a Bluetooth blood pressure cuff and a Bluetooth scale. And we have a software that captures all of that real-time biometric data and social determinants of health scoring, as well as mental health scoring, so that physicians giving that patient care can actually remotely monitor their patients and intervene before a catastrophic event takes place.
And what does the system look like? You have some Bluetooth capabilities, I understand?
Yes. So I have our Bluetooth hardware, and then we also have our software, and we have a patient app so that patient is part of this process, and they too can help monitor their blood pressure and monitor different things that are happening with them. And they can then now reach their care team directly, which that is a huge gap, making sure that they have that connectivity to their care team.
No, that's absolutely essential. What are your next milestones? What are you hoping to achieve?
So over the course of this year, we've got a lot set out, but I feel confident that we'll make those milestones. So first thing is that we're gearing up currently now for our feasibility studies. We want to make sure that this device works, and it works for patients and it works for the care teams, so that this works seamlessly into the current workflow. Secondly, we are in our seed round. So we are now raising capital for our seed. And then lastly, our goal is to launch this top of next year. So, we've got a lot of different things that we're looking to make happen, but we've got the right team here to make this happen.
Great. And final question, how can folks find out more information about Navigate Maternity?
Absolutely. So you guys can follow us at Navigate Maternity on IG, on TikTok, and then also, definitely check out our website at www.navigatematernity.com.
All right, that concludes this group of the Medtech Color finalists. We'll have our last 4 finalists coming up a little later in the podcast. All right, Sean, what is number 2 on the Newmakers list?
Number 2 is a company we come back to a lot, Medtronic.
Heard of it.
They released their earnings yesterday, and a lot of Chris Newmarker covered this. It was a lot of different aspects, obviously, so many different pieces of that business, but they seem to highlight their next generation TAVR system they launched in fall of last year as a big sort of driver as they beat Wall Street projections. They increased their full year guidance. And I think, not long ago, there were analysts questioning Medtronic and where it was headed. And this seems to, at least for the time being, changed the narrative. I don't know. It seems like, Chris here reported that Needham and Co. kept their hold rating on Medtronic, but they're not going to change their opinion on one good quarter.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to watch what happens there, because it's obviously, the medtech giant that we always refer to. So I don't know. It's some interesting stuff in their report, though.
No, they've been taking some dings. They're actually undergoing some big changes. Of course, they reorganized a couple of years ago. They're divesting a couple of their businesses. They're really preparing to move forward and push toward higher growth. So I guess this is a good first step. Kwame, what do you think about when you watch Medtronic over the last couple of quarters? I'm not sure if you're a quarterly company watcher, but what's your general take of where Medtronic is headed?
What jumped out at me is what you said. They are right sizing, looking at divestitures. And I feel like, we saw with GE, Danaher, I think the trend continues to kind of right size, spin out multiple times, sometimes same big company, to get to the core of what they think they can do well. I don't know if Medtronic will ever spin out a whole bunch of businesses, but it sounds like they're spinning out the ones where they just feel aren't core or don't serve them well. And it makes sense. I mean, that seems like something you need to do if you want to stay around for a long, long time, like Medtronic has.
Yep, for sure. So, good news. I'm glad to see Medtronic is reporting a strong quarter, and let's see if they can do it again next time. All right, Sean, what's the big number one? This is one that I want to hear from Kwame on for sure.
Yeah, number one is sort of the lawsuit that keeps on giving. I know just before Christmas, we reported on the ITC, International Trade Commission, ruling that Apple Watch infringed AliveCor's patented technology around ECG and heart monitoring, and it went to a presidential ruling, which President Biden upheld that decision favoring AliveCor. And at the same time, AliveCor is appealing the U.S. Patent Trial and Appeal Board decision that favored Apple. So this case is far from over, but it's still going on. And there's actually a similar one ongoing with Masimo against Apple for heart monitoring. And it's so much history. I know I go back and I look at all the links that we use to link back to the previous stories that built up to this point. And it's really, Apple's obviously such a massive company, and AliveCor is not. And so for them to take them on and seemingly have the upper ground in some capacity, it's pretty intriguing.
Absolutely. And Kwame, you track the digital health space. How do you, I don't know if you're following ITC rulings and such, but what's your take more broadly on wearables and sort of how that's all sorting out? And if you have a specific comment on this one, feel free to share it. But
I'm fortunate to Jennifer McKinney at UCLA invited me to co-teach a class on healthcare entrepreneurship. And Wilson Sonsini gave a lecture on IP just last night. And what I was under the misunderstanding of is that software can't get patented, but clearly it can. And digital non-traditional entrants is what I describe as Apple use their muscle to, let's just say, knowingly or unknowingly, put out products where they don't have a strong IP portfolio. And I think companies like Masimo historically have defended, gone on the offense and said, no, you're not going to infringe on our traditional medical device companies. You're not going to infringe on our patents. And I think that's in the DNA of traditional medical device companies to stand their ground when they're capitalized well enough, because that is core to who we are as traditional medical device companies. And the digital entrants maybe are kind of just trouncing on some of that. And now they're seeing some people will fight back. So I think it's good. I think it's good for innovation, and it's good for everyone involved.
No, definitely the company-on-company activity suggests there's real value there and real opportunity there. So they wouldn't fight if it wasn't worth fighting for.
That's right.
Yeah. So I'm eager to see, anxious to see. I don't want time to pass, but where we are 5 years from now with all of this, I've got my Apple Watch. and you just feel like we're on the cusp of these devices being able to do so much more. And hopefully these sort of legal turf battles don't slow things down. But more broadly, Kwame, how are you feeling about the digital tech space, the wearable space? Are you excited about where we're headed?
Yeah, so I look at the dollars and it's fun. Well, this is a podcast, so
he has his arm in a downward graph mode. Like we're headed down.
Well, no, the VC
or are
dollars.
you going up? Maybe I'm getting Zoom reversed. What are you doing?
See, this is. I'm not on camera enough. The VC dollars in digital health are 2, 3, 4x in traditional medical devices. All of those dollars aren't going into high quality digital health companies, but digital health is here to stay. And my sense is we're going to go from monitoring, image analysis type technologies. I would call that digital health 1.0 to precision digital diagnostic tools, personalized diagnostic tools, prescription digital therapeutics. I'll call that digital health 2.0. And you see those companies like Behavior. On the image analysis side, there's a Woodland Hill, a California-based company called iNook that analyzes eye images. And then the future 3.0, more predictive. Mm-hmm. You're at risk of PTSD. We're looking at a company that eventually wants to be able to say you have markers for and are at high risk of PTSD because of gene expressions. So I think there are going to be waves, and I think digital is here to stay. And the non-traditional entrants like Apple and Google are also here to stay.
All right, we'll take our final break to hear from our final 4 finalists of the Medtech Color pitch competition. Next up is Oben Health. I spoke with Peter Njongwe. He is CEO, and Oben Health is described as a culturally informed cardiovascular digital application that helps health plans and providers engage low-income Black and Brown patients in treating and reversing their chronic heart disease conditions. It says here that Oben Health has translated leading treatment pathways to fit the culture, language, and lifestyles of low-income Black and Brown patients, and it has a unique high engagement and partnership model designed to meet the patients where they are. Now let's hear from CEO Peter Njongwe, who has a personal connection, as many of these entrepreneurs do, to starting Oben Health. Well, Peter Njongwe, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot for having me, Tom.
I'm excited to learn about Oben Health, but first, tell our listeners a little bit about your own background.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am an immigrant from Cameroon. I was born in Cameroon and moved when I was about 11, 12, moved to Canada, and then I moved to the US. My background is in computer information systems. That's what I went to college for, and I got a minor in entrepreneurship. I started some companies when I was in college. Also, my first few years, they failed, but I learned a lot. I started working with big tech companies as a product manager, as a software developer. And I started Oben because a few years ago, my brother at the age of 36 passed away from uncontrolled hypertension in his sleep. This was something that was entirely preventable and should not have happened. And that was the why for Oben.
I'm really sorry to hear that. Well, let's learn about Oben Health and how it might have helped to prevent that. What are you trying to do?
Yeah, so we focus on helping health plans and health providers. We're focused on serving underserved populations like my brother. And we help them, help your patients manage and treat heart disease. We're starting with hypertension. And that is actually not just the disease itself, but the social determinants of health. So everything outside of the hospital walls that impact the patient. So where we create engaging patient plan, where they can engage patients as the patients are treating the disease. And where we help the health providers and plans to make better clinical decisions and know exactly what are some of the risk factors that are impacting the patient and how they can help the patient as well.
And how are you able to do that? What technology is Oben using?
Yeah, so we're a mobile application. So a front-facing mobile application. And then on the back end, we integrate with providers' EHR systems where we provide a platform where they can see how the patient is utilizing the treatment plan. And then they can also intervene if things are not going well. We also enable them to identify certain social determinants of health risk factors. So we're able to pinpoint a certain type of patient doesn't have access to food or is missing access to that may impact their care, so they can be proactive, or they can actually put together a plan that can meet the patient where they are.
Okay, great. What are the milestones that you're hoping to achieve over the next year or so? Where are you at in your development?
Yeah, so this year we're looking to launch. So the pilots we've done so far have been 3 pilots to showcase patient engagement. So the one thing we learned from our customers was we needed to have really good patient engagement numbers. So this year we have 3 paid pilots that are coming up. So we're really focused on revenue generation and with paid pilots. And a huge focus of those paid pilots will be around clinical outcomes. So we want to show that the clinical outcomes from using their product are, that there's evidently clinical outcomes that are showing a decreased rate in cardiovascular disease, specifically hypertension. And so it's really having those 3 to 5 paid pilots, get revenue generation, and showing the clinical outcomes what we're doing that will prepare us for next year as we look to grow and scale.
Okay, great. And final question, how can folks find out more about Oben Health?
Yeah, so you can go on our website, www.joinoben.com. We're also on LinkedIn, Oben Health, as well as Instagram, Oben Health. And that's where you can see where we are. We share a little bit more about what we're doing and find all the things we're up to.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing your story, Peter, and for joining us on the podcast.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Tom. Appreciate it.
Now let's bring in Tanzen Medical. It's our next finalist. And Tanzen Medical is building and commercializing Resties. Describes Resties as an FDA breakthrough wearable device and system that can characterize leg movements during sleep to aid in the diagnosis and treatment and management of sleep movement disorders, including restless leg syndrome, which I learned a lot about. I spoke with co-founders Nilanjan Banerjee and Justin Brooks. Let's listen. Nilanjan Banerjee and Justin Brooks, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
I'm anxious to learn about Tanzen Medical, but first, very quickly, tell me a bit about your backgrounds. Justin, why don't you go first?
Sure. Justin Brooks. I'm a physician scientist with a background in biosignal analysis and data science.
And Nilanjan?
Yeah, my name is Nilanjan Banerjee, and I am a computer scientist. And I'm also a full professor of computer science and electrical engineering at University of Maryland and the CEO of Tanzen Medical. I mostly do embedded systems and hardware development.
Excellent. Well, Nilanjan, maybe you can tell us about Tanzen Medical.
So Tanzen Medical is a company that is looking to build and commercialize a device called Resties, which characterizes leg movements during sleep. So we are using this device to aid in the diagnosis and treatment management of various sleep movement disorders, such as restless leg syndrome, periodic leg movement disorder, and REM behavior disorder. We have FDA breakthrough designation for our medical device, and we are looking at commercializing and selling the device by the end of this year.
What does the device look like? Is it a wristwatch sort of device?
No, it's an ankle-worn wearable. So you wear it on the ankle throughout the night. It looks at various characteristics of the leg movements, which has not been looked at till now. And from those leg movements, it determines periods of time that you might have woken up, as well as if you have special types of leg movements which are tied to various sleep movement disorders.
And Justin, I'm curious, what you hear restless leg syndrome, and it sounds like the name itself doesn't really convey, I think, an importance, or not an importance, but at least it doesn't sound serious. Tell us about restless leg and why it's important to have a device like this that's able to help monitor it.
Yeah, restless leg is actually a fairly serious condition. It affects millions of patients across the country, and it's really debilitating because restless leg syndrome clinically sort of manifests as a disorder where people get these creepy, crawly sensations in their legs. And the only way they can alleviate them is by moving the leg, rubbing the leg, getting up and walking around. And as you can imagine, it really disrupts their sleep. And this company was founded to address this issue because to date, there's really no good way of diagnosing or managing it because it's all description based. So somebody might describe it as ants, somebody else might describe it as an itch. And to the lay physician, this diagnosis might be missed. What's perhaps even more pernicious is that what we think is happening in the brain to cause this condition really disinhibits and really causes a lot of dysfunction in the cortical brain areas. And so people are actually losing sort of next day performance. Their stress is getting amplified because the brain itself is waking up undetectably over the course of the night. And so our device, by measuring specific features in the leg movements, can actually detect this brain dysfunction and allow physicians to treat their patients much better.
I'd like to have my ignorant question stricken from the record, if that's all right. Okay, now that
it's a great question.
that sounds very serious.
We get that question all the time, and it is.
What are your milestones? What are you hoping to achieve over the next year?
So we've had a lot of success to date, with bootstrapping, a lot of non-diluting funds, various grants from the National Science Foundation, NIH. We've gotten the device to a pretty good version 2 of our prototype. We're in a number of different research labs and clinical settings across the country at some of the top places in the country, including UCSF, Yale University, Johns Hopkins. What we'd like to do over the next year is redesign the device. We've got some lessons learned based on all of these experiences. And we'd like to get through our formal FDA approval process. As Nilanjan mentioned, we have breakthrough device designation, and we're looking to move through our market approval process this year. We're also looking to, after our redesign is complete, to manufacture about 10,000 units and broaden our market and start selling, hopefully by the end of the year.
How can folks find out more about Tanzen Medical?
So we have a web portal, which is www.tanzenmed.com. We keep it up to date, and that's where most of the information about the company is visible. We are also working on our social media presence, so we should have that on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook very soon.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing the story on the podcast.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Next, I'd like to bring in Thermaband. Thermaband is a health tech company that provides thermal comfort through a temperature-regulating bracelet and connected companion app with digital menopausal-related health insights. I spoke with co-founders Debbie Dickinson and Markea Dickinson-Frazier. Let's listen. All right, well, I'm here with Debbie Dickinson and Markea Dickinson-Frazier. Debbie is co-founder and CEO, and Markea is co-founder and COO. Debbie, why don't you go first? Tell us a bit about yourself.
Oh, all right. Delighted to be here, by the way. Debbie Dickinson, and we are the mother-daughter duo, I might say.
That's awesome.
And co-founders of Thermaband. My background is actually a legal, actually practiced as a lawyer in the benefits area for a number of years, worked in the pharmaceutical industry and as a benefits professional. I've actually lectured and had a number of entrepreneurial pursuits and have been an advocate for women's issues. And this has really, really been a phenomenal, really, it ties in so many of the skills and things that we're interested in. So all those, whether it's entrepreneurial, women's issues, actually, one of the entrepreneurial pursuits was with Silpada Designs, so accessories or jewelry accessories for women. So yeah, so a varied background and now tackling thermal health with a smart bracelet, and delighted to share about what we're doing.
Terrific. Markea, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background's in supply chain. I actually worked in consumer goods at Unilever for a number of years. I was a production manager in a manufacturing facility. I worked in procurement and worked in planning as well. And we actually were able to incubate Thermaband while I was getting my MBA at Yale.
That's fantastic. All right. Well, let's take a moment to learn about Thermaband. Debbie, tell us about the company and the product.
All right. Yes. So we have a smart wearable, it's really a bracelet that provides immediate hot flash relief, and then a connected app with digital health insights. So it activates either manually or automatically and preemptively, which is pretty exciting. It'll turn on for you if you select, and give not only the relief that is so desirable, but also insights through an app with a connected community relative to what's happening with our bodies.
Can you share a little bit about how it's able to deliver that relief?
Yeah, it's similar to the technology that's in our car seat. You hit a button and it gets cool, or you hit a button and it gets warm. So it's discrete heating or cooling sensations. On the inner wrist, it's a receptor on our inner wrist. Our body has lots of receptors. And just, when you hang on to a cold glass of water or a warm cup of cocoa when you're uncomfortably hot or cold, just introducing that sensation really activates our body's thermoregulatory center in the brain and allows us, or the perception of comfort is correlated with, temperature or touch. Especially for a hot flash, it really subsides as we learn from our testers, and just based on what we're doing. As women experiencing a hot flash, we know we can stick our hands in the freezer, we can put our hands on a cold running water, we can put our hands on a cool granite countertop and frozen gel packs, et cetera, or we have a device that can just give us a cool sensation in a very discreet manner. And we get the relief that we typically get in less tech ways, let's say.
That's great. Well, this is definitely an area that hasn't received much attention in the past, so it's great that you're giving it the attention that is due. Markea, can you tell us a bit about where you are with the product and what are some milestones you'd like to achieve coming up over the next year?
Absolutely. So we are actually in manufacturing now. The plan is to ship in early spring. And we're really excited about the community that we've been able to build. We built a community of over 60,000 women. We've sold about 500 pre-orders, and we're at this point where we actually have raised over $1.5 million from venture capital funds and angel investors and accredited investors. So really excited about the progress that we've had so far.
Wow, that's outstanding. Excellent. How can folks find out more information about Thermaband?
Well, on our website, so thermaband.com, Thermaband. And also on Facebook, we have a multi-generational sisterhood on health, wellness, and menopause. And we have a growing community of women talking about health, women's health and wellness, and really getting into menopause and education and collaboration and that sort of thing. So, and on Instagram as well, at Thermaband.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Fantastic. Glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
And finally, let's bring in Youme Healthcare. I spoke with CEO Hafeezah Mohammed. And Youme Healthcare is described as a personalized, comprehensive, and inclusive telehealth and psychiatry treatment company for low-income youth. And once again, I spoke with CEO Hafeezah Mohammed, who founded the company after a very personal and troubling experience. Let's listen. Well, Hafeezah Mohammed, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for sharing Youme Healthcare's story. But before we get into that story, tell us your story. How did you get to start this company?
So Youme Healthcare, I was an executive for a large mental health company, and they were in more than 40 states. And while I was working there, I noticed that, there were kids that would call in that needed help with mental health struggles. Majority of some of them had, Medicaid, which is federally funded insurance. And tragedy hit me in October of 2020. My son, who was 6 at the time, came to me and said, "Mommy, I feel like I want to kill myself." As a mom, I felt like a failure. I felt helpless. But even though I had, thousands of therapists around me, I couldn't find care for my son. At that moment, I said, I never want another parent to go through the pain that I was going through. And I left and I started Youme Healthcare. So we are a pediatric mental health company that focuses, pediatric and family, because we help the entire family unit that focuses on children that have federally funded insurance.
That's a great reason to start, and it's definitely an area in great need. There's that whole system is in disarray. But tell us, how does Youme Healthcare help?
Yeah, so Youme Healthcare helps. We take a look at the family from the entire perspective. So not only the child who is struggling, but also if the parent is struggling that has children. We provide therapy, we provide psychiatry, and we also do something that's cool that's called bibliotherapy, where we utilize books as part of our therapy. So we illustrate and digitalize our books so our patients can have content to use in between sessions to help them improve their outcomes and get closer to being able to have a happy and fulfilling life. And that's something I'm really excited about. So we have that one-on-one and that independent support that we provide for them.
So is this done all on smartphone or what's the technical interface?
So great question. So this is done digitally. So we do our telehealth. We have an app that our kids can access and use, as well as their families that they can use in between sessions. So everything is done digitally so that, no matter who you are, where you're at, if you can't come into an office, at least you can have Youme Healthcare for support.
That's fantastic. And what sort of milestones are you looking to achieve over the next year? Where are you as a company?
Yeah, so some milestones that we're looking to achieve is that we are writing out our anxiety content for bibliotherapy. So far we've done more than 6,000 sessions that we've done. And right now we want to take it to the next level, so that we can reach more children faster. We believe that our bibliotherapy product is one of those unique solutions that can reach every child, right? Because anyone can go through a digital book, read their therapeutic. And we want to be able to at least reach more children that we have right now. And that's done through expansion. So right now we're based in Maryland, and we're entering DC, Virginia within the next year so that we're able to start expanding our support. And hopefully by 2025, we can be everywhere in the US so that every child in federally funded insurance, which is more than half of the child population in the US, can have equal access to care.
If people want to find out more information as an investor or partner or as a parent, where can they go?
If they want to find out more information, they can go to www.youmehealthcare.com. They can also reach out to me on LinkedIn or follow our LinkedIn company page as well.
Great. We'll have your name in the podcast notes so they can find you easily.
Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you for sharing your story. All right. Well, that is a wrap on these profiles. Thanks to all the entrepreneurs and founders who made the time to share their story on the podcast, and best of luck on the pitch contest. All right. Well, we heard from all the finalists for the Medtech Color pitch contest. We'll kind of review the details of that of the pitch contest, which is coming up on March 3rd. But before we go there, Kwame, I mean, we are 3 years removed almost from the murder of George Floyd. 2020, many of us made pronouncements that we were going to try to improve representation and diversity in workforces. I'm curious, from your position as executive director of Medtech Color, are things getting better? Are you seeing progress? Are you encouraged?
So I would say when you look at organizations that are working on these issues, like California Life Sciences, as an example, they have a racial and social equity program that was funded with $3 million that they will persist in. So it went from an initiative to a program, and they're working along very specific pillars to address this issue systemically. When you look at what's happened for Medtech Color, we went from our first prize was $25K to now our first prize is $75K. So there have been some growth, but the magnitude of investment dollars, and that's an area that I spend a lot of time focused on, the magnitude of energy around diversity of clinical trials, we're nowhere near where we need to be. Because if you look at the numbers of investment dollars, some data will show that it's been flat. Some will say there's been a dip investing in companies led by people of color. But generally speaking, I do think there's a sustained awareness and activity that organizations like AliveCor are pushing forward, Medtech Color is pushing forward, et cetera. Yeah.
And how about in the medtech workforce at some of the larger companies?
Yeah, so our partners like Olympus are really focused on, as they should be, on pipeline issues. I know ResMed has a laser-like focus on this. And I know from way back, Stryker has been focused on targets and diversifying their board to address this issue. It's nowhere near solved. The numbers aren't where they need to be in terms of going beyond tokenism and leadership. But I do think you can point to examples of companies who are really committed to this for the long term, and they're staffing DE&I positions properly or HR positions. So, and holding leaders accountable to really try and get more people at the table, more diverse voices at the table. Yeah.
And you mentioned the FDA and clinical trials earlier. You used to work at the FDA. We've talked about that on the podcast before. A week ago or so, there was an article in Nature that says the FDA to require diversity plan for clinical trials. I'd love to get your take on that. I mean, to be upfront, I wasn't even aware this was an issue until a few years ago. So shame on me. So we're having this conversation. Does this feel like we're finding a solution, or is this just another article about the problem?
So I will tell you, having worked at the FDA, my old colleague, Michelle Tarver, has done some amazing work. Once you start mandating certain data elements in applications, That's when you move the needle. There are only about 2 or 3 real powerful things the FDA does, in my humble opinion. One is around user fees and what they say they're going to do. and the other is mandating data requirements for marketing applications. Because and the third thing, and I'm excited about this, is this breakthrough designation program has added an eligibility requirement to address health equity. Okay. So companies love breakthrough. Now, more companies who are addressing health equity, like some of our top 10 winners, could get breakthrough designation because they're addressing a health equity issue. And those, they seem like simple moves, but they are needle moving moves. The FDA clinical trials policy, the breakthrough designation policy, and any requirements tied to user fees will move the industry forward. And I think those 3 will.
Excellent. Well, great stuff. And I know Boston Scientific has had an effort to close the gap, called Close the Gap. I know others as well, Medtronic as well. So, but you're right. I think the real change comes when it's required and everyone has to work with the same understanding under the same approach. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. Going back to the pitch contest once again, where will it be? Can people who are listening, if they're in the area, can they attend? If so, how can they find out more information, and how can they get involved with Medtech Color if they may not want to be at the pitch contest, but they want to be part of what you're doing going forward? How can they do that?
Absolutely. So the first thing I would invite your listeners to do is to visit medtechcolor.org and learn more about the pitch competition. It's going to be live in beautiful Culver City, specifically at one of our strong partners, Bioscience LA's facility. Bioscience LA is a convener of life science stakeholders in Southern California. It will be on March 3rd in person, highly produced and live streamed. So if for some reason you can't make it to sunny Southern California, you can watch it in the comfort of your home. We're going to have judges from the NIH, Olympus, Johnson & Johnson. Many of our corporate partners are going to fly in. There's going to be a contingent of lawyers from Wilson Sonsini, McDermott, Will and Emery will be there. The entire ecosystem will show up. So we can't wait, and we invite your listeners to join us.
Great. And is this the first time you're getting together live, or were you able to do live last year? I forget.
That pandemic messed us up, man. So this is that little thing called the pandemic. This is our first in-person event. So we're just so excited. The facility will hold roughly 125 people. And we're going to have venture capitalists in addition to the other invited guests as well.
Great. And more broadly, final question just about Medtech Color. What can folks can go to medtechcolor.org to find out more information about that? But what kind of help are you looking for? More larger strategics, more just regular members? Who's welcome? Who's welcome under the tent?
Everyone is welcome. The 2 focus areas we have for 2023 are more corporate partners. Sure Solutions recently joined as a corporate partner. TMG has been a strong corporate partner for a while, in addition to Johnson & Johnson and others. But the other thing, number 2, is members. Members want to volunteer for different committees, and there's an easy way to sign up to be a member. We have 2 categories, one for professionals and one for young professionals. And we would invite you to explore joining a committee and volunteer as a member of our group.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I'm glad it's going well. I hope next time we talk, we'll have even more progress to discuss. Yeah. And thanks for making all of your finalists available for the podcast. It was great to be able to tell their stories.
Oh, Tom, thank you. And thank you, Device Talks. You've been excellent to us. And I'm so glad that the CEOs had a chance to tell their story and meet with you.
They were fantastic. So final part of this, social media. Kwame, you're our guest. Where can folks find you out on social media?
We are very active on LinkedIn. You can even find us on Instagram. I believe our handles are Medtech Color on LinkedIn and Instagram. So follow us those places.
And Sean Whooley, where are you out there in social media land?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Sean, SEAN WHOOLEY, Whooley, and it's the same with WTWH at the end of the handle on LinkedIn or on Twitter, excuse me, Sean Whooley WTWH. Although I'm not particularly active there, waiting to see as the dust settles on what's going on that site.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to get back there. We got to get you a nickname though for your handle, so it's easier. So I'm on Twitter at Medtech Tom, and like you, yeah, I'm trying to. I walked away. Now I'm kind of stepping back and just keeping it to Medtech and Red Sox, like I said last week. That's it. And I'm on LinkedIn, of course, Tom, Salemi. We want folks, Sean Whooley, you ready for this? What do we want folks to do?
Like, follow, subscribe.
Very good.
Is that right?
You got it right.
Yes, God.
Chris would be proud. And
it's a lot of pressure.
I know that was probably part of your performance review, right? You had to get that right.
Yeah.
Like, follow, and or subscribe to this podcast, actually the Device Talks Podcast Network. You'll get future episodes of Device Talks Weekly, Stryker Talks, Intuitive Talks, and Boston Scientific Talks is coming up next month. And you can also subscribe to Medtronic Talks. It has its own channel. Everything's available on every podcast application, Google, Apple, Spotify, etc. So, and of course, everything's available on devicetalks.com. You can find out information about Device Talks Tuesdays, which we just started this week, our season 4. And of course, Device Talks Boston is happening on May 10th and 11th. And hopefully, Kwame, you'll be part of Device Talks West, which will be October 18th and 19th in Santa Clara. But we can talk about that later. We have some time. That's it, Kwame. Thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Oh, thank you, Tom. It's always a pleasure.
Great to have you. Thank you, Sean. For
nice to meet you today as well, Kwame.
Thanks for filling in, Sean Whooley.
My pleasure.